Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. I came across this piece by Beatrice Scudula in the public discourse. The essay is on Gen Z women and the internet fascination with quote-unquote men who yearn. It's an attempt at commenting on a myriad of issues. We have a culture that spent the past 60 years telling women marriage is slavery, motherhood is social death, homemaking is wasted talent, and never restrain yourself, especially sexually, and that any masculine devotion is one quote-unquote microaggression away from a tribunal, from the courts. So the strange popularity today of fictional men who serve, who protect, who wait, sacrifice, and desire one woman with discipline and constancy. They actually show that many of these young women, for how liberated they claim to be, they're still longing for the same covenantal structure of relationships that God ordained since the beginning of time. Modern feminism began by insisting upon the equal dignity of women. Sure, there were certain issues in society that needed to be confronted. No sane Christian can deny that a woman is created in the image of God with the same immortal destiny as a man. The problem was, much of the movement, from its very founding, gradually exchanged equality for sameness, and that inevitably becomes an issue. Because that exchange is disastrous. A woman does not gain dignity by being measured according to male standards or male industrial categories or male sexual habits. John Paul II actually talks about this in Mulieris Dignitatem. Christina Summers, she called the older and more reasonable view of equity feminism, she coined it that way, and she defined that as the belief in the full social, legal, and political equality of the sexes. Now, mind you, she is not a devout Catholic with an interest in the Catholic anthropology between male and female. But this is what she said. She felt the need to distinguish between equity feminism and gender feminism, which is how far the movement has become now. It's wandered into theatrical resentment against men, but it's dressed up as scholarship. Her book, Who Stole Feminism? How Women Have Betrayed Women, is a good read. The first lie was that women are the same as men, distinct only by social conditioning. That's fiction, but once that entered the bloodstream of education and law and media and corporate life, womanhood had to be treated with a real sense of social suspicion. All those things that are natural to womanhood, so your fertility, maternity, receptivity, embodied difference, the feminine genius, these all became embarrassing reminders that nature didn't get with the program, that women had to be more like men, the masculinization of women. Camille Paglia, again, hardly a spokesperson for Catholic domestic piety as well, understood this far better than most ecclesial bureaucrats. She argued in her book Sexual Personae, Art and Decadence from Nefertiti to Emily Dickinson, she argued that sexuality is bound to nature, power, aggression, beauty, and a series of other things. But childish feminism pretends that sexual difference exists, and what it does is it actually leaves women exposed to a world that has deliberately misdescribed woman. Now, the second lie, therefore, was economic and industrial. Women were told that their value is determined by measurable contribution to the economic market, that the mother who forms souls and governs the moral atmosphere of a home or transmits things like language, culture, helps stabilize the home for her husband, civilizes children, and creates the first school of love together with her husband. All of these somehow are less important than the woman who answers emails in a cubicle for a company that will replace her in a heartbeat the moment she's gone. This is where the modern world has become particularly ridiculous. It solemnly praises the care economy in its papers, but then it despises the homemaker who actually cares. The modern culture funds endless conferences about social fragmentation, but then it continues to mock and deride the bride and mother, whose daily fidelity prevents civilization from becoming a warehouse. In fact, if anything, she is the one who upholds the fundamental structure of society. Then you've got Mary Eberstadt. She's a cultural commentator, brilliant woman. She's argued that the sexual revolution after contraception fractured the link between sex and marriage and children and kinship and religion. Her book, Adam and Eve After the Pill, It's a powerful book, precisely because it shows liberation produced tremendous loneliness, family instability, it created pornography and relational confusion, and the strange misery of people who were suddenly given the permission to do everything that they wanted. But the problem is, if you know that you can do everything, then nothing is meaningful. The third lie from there, then, was educational arrogance. Women were told that schooling would liberate them from needing men for anything. Now, education is wonderful. Education worthy of the name should prepare every individual for truth and wisdom and virtue, service, vocation. Unfortunately, the present secular narrative, the progressivist narratives, train women to treat any form of dependence as degradation. And so marriage is a remedial program for those who are too sentimental to be self-sufficient. And marriage, in that sense, is the shackles, the ball and the chain of a woman. And the tragedy is that women were encouraged to confuse their need with weakness. The human being enters existence through dependency. There's not a single one of us who's completely self-sufficient. We mature through dependency. We survive through dependency. Marriage is built on dependency. I quite literally depend on my bride and trust her to build our house, to build a home, to care for our children while I'm at work, and to continue the upholding of the spiritual culture and the moral culture that I have set in the home. We depend on each other. And that's how we reach holiness together. Dependency upon God's grace within the covenant family. Man is not an island. He cannot function in self-sufficiency unto himself because that's a war against the human condition. Then you've got the fourth lie, the sexual liberation lie. Women, you would only be free if you're completely sexually available at all times. You know what it did? It didn't liberate women. It trained men to pursue pleasure without covenant and commitment. And then it trained women to call any form of abandonment, when men don't commit, empowerment. A woman must be successful in career and as sexually available as possible with no strings attached. I'm sorry, but the human person isn't made to function that way. If anything, all that movement has done is validate male irresponsibility and female use. Louise Perry, in The Case Against the Sexual Revolution, talks about this bluntly. Men are encouraged into what she calls CAD mode, pursuing all of the pleasure of cheap sex and none of the responsibilities of commitment. That sentence alone should be printed on every campus orientation folder in the Western world. Then you've got the problem of pornography and dating apps. That intensifies the damage because now they've transformed the real pursuit of genuine covenant, commitment, and intimacy into a sexually imaginative marketplace, restless novelty. And then the media industry shoves explicit content on women constantly. In fact, if anything, we are noticing more and more that with each passing decade, generations of women, millennial women, are desensitized by explicit entertainment. And it's unfortunately corrupting their social imagination at large. The solution, quite frankly, is virtuous masculinity, more virtuous masculinity. And as men rise up the right way, women have to become more womanly. So yes, the effeminization of men is an ugly thing. And I'm going to state this bluntly. I don't care how many people get uncomfortable with that statement. Because the flip side is the masculinization of women, which is also an ugly thing. No, men are better than women at being men. Women are better than men at being women. God has made this duality part of his bearing, part of his design for men and women being bearers of the divine image. And so within our bodies and within our souls in the masculine and feminine genius is that complementarity. And when that's honored and revered, well, the body is capable, John Paul II says, of making visible what is invisible, the spiritual and the divine. The male and female body are reflections of the male and female individual and the geniuses therein. That, my friends, needs to be reclaimed in every facet of social life. Then, as we bow before the teachings of the church about maleness and femaleness, we will see society right itself once again. Stay tuned. I'm Marcus Peter.